Many of them are only theoretically possible, using inputs so precise they can't normally be done, but they break the game in ways unimaginable to most. This is the story of the Ultra Shortcut Revolution. So what is an ultra shortcut? Well, naturally it's a shortcut that skips a large portion of a track, but as you'll see in a minute, there's actually a bit more to it than that. From 2008 through 2018, courses like Mushroom Gorge, Wario's Gold Mine, and DK Jungle Parkway had shortcuts discovered so players could complete them in under a minute. They were performed in a variety of ways. In Mushroom Gorge, you ride on a wall around the finish line. In Wario's Gold Mine, you bounce off a pipe to the track above. And on DK Jungle Parkway, you fly high in the air and clip through a wall to the end of the track. Over the course of about a decade, massive shortcuts like these were discovered at the rate of about one per year on a variety of tracks. Slowly but surely, more and more of the game's 32 courses had ultra shortcuts discovered. For years, that was the state of Mario Kart Wii. And then, in 2019, a revolution began. For a multitude of reasons, ultra shortcuts were discovered more rapidly than ever before. They all had to do with the game's faulty checkpoint system, and to see how it works, we're going to look at one of the most broken tracks in Mario Kart Wii. This is Sherbet Land. This course is a massive loop, and obviously the programmers didn't want you to skip any significant portion of it. So they built an intricate checkpoint system into every track to try to prevent that. On screen now is the checkpoint map for Sherbet Land. All of the blue lines represent normal checkpoints, which are used to tell Lakitu where to place you if you fall off. Those can be ignored. The green lines, on the other hand, are key checkpoints. These are the ones that really matter, and you can think of them as boxes that extend all the way until the next checkpoint. The red starting line also acts as a key checkpoint. The game wants you to drive through all of these without skipping any in order to give you credit for a lap. The way it does this is with a counter that updates as you drive through each key checkpoint. On Sherbet Land, there's 8 key checkpoints and the finish line, which counts as Region 0. So as long as your counter is at Region 8 when you cross the finish line, you'll get credit for the lap. The game also has a failsafe to make sure you don't skip any key checkpoint regions. The only key checkpoint regions that are loaded at any time are the region you're in, the one in front of you, and if you're in the key checkpoint box itself, the region behind you is loaded too. A region has to be loaded for your counter to update to it. So say you're here in Region 1, and you try to skip ahead to Region 3. Well, the only other region loaded is the one in front of you, Region 2. So when you drive through Region 3, it won't be loaded, and the game's counter won't update. And since you'll drive through the finish line with the counter at 1 instead of 8, the lap won't count. So skipping any large portion of the track isn't doable. Another failsafe the game has involves the finish line. If you ever go from the box right in front of the finish line to the box right behind it, the game will subtract a lap from your total. That way, you can't just go through or around the finish line to the end and complete it for a free lap. So, since you couldn't skip any key checkpoints, the only possible shortcuts seem to be small corner cutters. The game's checkpoint system did its job, but it had one flaw. One major, game-breaking flaw. If you start any shortcut from key checkpoint Region 0, right in front of the finish line, the key checkpoint box behind you is still loaded, Region 8. So you can skip a massive portion of the track, and as long as you started in that first box, your counter can still be updated to region 8, and the lap will count. Shortcuts that abuse this specific glitch are classified as ultra shortcuts, and sure enough, Sherbet Land has one that's possible. This is the Sherbet Land Ultra Shortcut. It involves doing a trick known as a wall clip. By backing up, using a mushroom, and doing a wheelie to get at least 5 frames of airtime and adjust your bike's rotational angle, you can run into the side of certain objects to clip high into the air. This has a variety of uses across the game, but back in July 2015, a player named Blaze figured out that you could wall clip off of the finish line pole and land far enough back to respawn a bit behind the finish line. You can see from the checkpoint map what's happening. You start in the box in front of the finish line, then need to land in a specific spot in this checkpoint to respawn. Then, since key checkpoint 8 is loaded, you need to turn around and go touch the box to update the game's counter before driving forward to the finish. A lap could be completed in under 20 seconds. For a few years, people took turns lowering the 3-lap world record, and by late 2017, it was a 1:43 by a runner named Guy. The biggest issue with the shortcut, however, was that it could only be done once per race, since the act of respawning takes your mushrooms away, which are required to get the wall clip in the first place. So, if you could somehow do this ultra shortcut without respawning, then that would be huge. And it seemed like that should be possible. By angling your bike to the left more, you could make it back to the track without a respawn. But doing so would cause the lap to not count, because of yet another failsafe the game has, the 95% rule. The game actually keeps track of how much of the course you completed when you entered each checkpoint, or at least the game's best estimation of how much you completed. If it ever sees you skipping more than 95% of a track from one checkpoint to the next, it won't count the following lap. Now, the game actually isn't that great at tracking this in most cases. In courses like Grumble Volcano, for instance, where you're clearly skipping more than 95% of the track by going on the rock, the game only registers you as skipping about 83%, so the trick works. But on Sherbet Land, since you have to cross over this checkpoint to land on the track, the game thinks you went from 0% to 97%, meaning the 95% rule was not satisfied and the lap wouldn't count. For years, the 95% rule prevented the non-respawn ultra shortcut from happening. But in May 2019, a tool-assisted speedrunner known as Swear got an idea. The game's percentage of completion updates anytime you enter a checkpoint. So you could drive ahead to the next checkpoint, then re-enter the first checkpoint from further ahead, at about 2% completion. Then, if you manage to wall clip and land on the track while your completion percentage updated to 97%, the 95% rule would be satisfied and the lap would count. So, Swear got to work at creating a tool-assisted speedrun of Sherbet Land. A tool-assisted speedrun, or a TAS, is a type of speedrun where the player uses tools like slowdown, save states, and frame by frame to create higher levels of gameplay than humans can normally perform. On May 21st, 2019, he and fellow tassers Akari, CF, Luke, and Thomas released their 3 out of 3 Sherbet Land TAS, with 1 mushroom used on each lap to just barely land on the track and have the ultra shortcut count. A run clocking in at just 35 seconds. So, the focus turned to doing this normally in real time, or RTA. On May 16th, Bryce managed to hit the no respawn version, but used 2 mushrooms in the process and could only do it once, getting a new world record of 140. Just over a month later, Taylor would improve the record to 129 by doing the 2 mushroom no respawn method on lap 1, then using his last mushroom to do the wall flip again and land in the water for a lap skip. This same method would be improved over the following months, down to a 116 by Arthur, which is where the record stands today. As of now, nobody has hit the 1 mushroom no respawn lap skip in real time even once. Arthur got pretty close in October 2020, with his front tire hitting against the edge, but he couldn't make it. So given that, doing this 3 times in a row like the task does seems out of the question. Right now, it looks impossible. But who knows what the future of Sherbet Land holds. These Sherbet Land developments can be considered the first major events of the Ultra Shortcut revolution. Over the following several weeks in mid-2019, discoveries went dormant for a bit while players worked on improving various world records. But in July, seemingly out of nowhere, possibly the craziest day in Mario Kart Wii history took place. Remember how I mentioned before that Ultra Shortcuts in the past had been discovered at the rate of about 1 per year? Well, during these 24 hours, there wasn't a new Ultra Shortcut discovered. There were 3 of them. Call it a ridiculous coincidence. Call it a culmination of years of effort from the community. Whatever it was, the end result was incredible. On July 11th and 12th, new Ultra Shortcuts were revealed on N64 Bowser's Castle, Shy Guy Beach, and Koopa Cape. Bowser's Castle was first, being revealed on July 11th, and it looked quite similar to the one on Sherbet Land. This shortcut was first theorized by a tasser known as CF, and successfully tasked by Luke with help from a handful of others. It began by doing a humanly impossible trick known as rapid fire hop abuse. The game needs your bike to be on the ground for at least 2 frames to update its rotational angle. By alternating pressing and releasing the hop button every frame, or 30 times per second, you can ensure that your bike is only on the ground for 1 frame at a time, so your bike's rotational angle will never update. This can only be done in a tool-assisted speedrun. Then, once you get near this wall, you can release the rapid fire hop abuse, causing the game to quickly update your rotational angle and slam your front wheel into the ground. You'll briefly fly into the air, allowing you to get over the wall next to the finish line. By then doing a wall clip, you'll fly high in the air and down into the lava. This Ultra Shortcut works just like the one on Sherbet Land. These checkpoints extend out a bit into the lava, so it's possible to land in them even without making it to the road. So once again, you can land out of bounds, respawn on the course, then go back to hit the last key checkpoint and finish the lap. But ultimately, even though the shortcut was similar in structure to Sherbet Land, the rapid fire hop abuse made it task only. It was impossible to do this humanly. The second shortcut, on the other hand, was humanly viable, but it has quite the background. This same day the N64 Bowser's Castle Ultra Shortcut was discovered, a player named Breakson posted this gif of wall clipping off a bomb. Right away, CF realized the massive potential this had. If you could clip off a bomb right in front of the finish line and land somewhere back here, you would then be able to touch the last key checkpoint and get an extremely fast lap. The bombs in Shy Guy Beach operate on a cycle, with bombs landing and exploding at the same times in the same places each time you play. And coincidentally, right when the race begins, a bomb lands in front of the finish line, exactly where you'd want to clip off of it. So naturally, that's what the players were aiming for. But every time they tried, the bomb would explode just too soon. Luke was able to get close with the task, but it exploded frames too early every single time. So, CF's original task was for the second time the bomb landed there. But that meant waiting for over 3 minutes. That ruled out any hopes of beating the 3-lap world record. But you could still beat the single-lap record. By driving to the end of the first lap, then waiting until 3 minutes on the timer, you could quickly start the second lap, then wall clip off the bomb to the end of the lap, and smash the fastest lap world record. And later the same day, that's what players were doing. Justin became the first player to set a world record with the Ultra Shortcut with a 20-second lap, and he chose to spend his 3-minute wait by eating an entire pack of Oreo cookies.
I am eating with no milk, by the way.
A couple weeks later, this method would be improved in a task by EJ. By starting the clip sooner, you could clip off the back of the bomb to shave a fraction of a second. Although it was more precise, this method would ultimately be brought to RTA runs as well. The current lap record is a 16.9 by Jack Glusing, one of the most bizarre looking tricks in the game. So those were the first two shortcuts, both discovered on July 11th. They both involved wall clips, flying high into the air to skip a lap. But just a short while later, the third ultra shortcut in 24 hours was discovered. And this one was the craziest of all. Welcome to Koopa Cape. The credit for this one goes to Blaze, being revealed in a TAS on July 12th. You start by going to the half pipe in front of the finish line and tilting the nose of your bike down. Then you start the rapid fire hop abuse to keep your back wheel in the air as you move forward. By releasing it, you'll get slammed into the ground again and launched high in the air. The rapid fire hop abuse alone makes this humanly impossible, but in case it didn't, this next part would likely take care of that too. By angling your wheel up while in the air, you can then do a wall clip and land inside the barrier while still technically being on the track. Then you maneuver close to the finish line with extreme precision and fall off the course. When you respawn, you're behind the finish line and can finish the lap. As this trick stands right now, it's certainly not humanly viable. Getting across this gap seems to be impossible without rapid fire hop abuse, so until a way around that is figured out, no human will ever perform this outside of a TAS. So those were the 3 ultra shortcuts discovered in rapid succession. Including the no respawn shortcut on Sherbet Land, that made it 4 ultra shortcuts discovered in 2019. Never before had the game seen a period of discovery like this. There had been years in the past with multiple ultra shortcuts found, but never had there been 4 separate ones. The next several months of 2019 came and went without any new discoveries, calming the scene for a little while. And then came 2020. "2019 may have been an incredible year for Mario Kart Wii, but 2020 really was the year of the Ultra Shortcut. And it all started just 9 days in, on N64 Mario Raceway. This one has to do with the wall in the center of the course. Players knew for a while that if they could somehow get inside of it, they might be able to maneuver around in it to get a lap skip. Issue was, it has a massive invisible wall that extends upward in the sky. Any attempts to get up inside of it would be blocked by this wall. But in early January 2020, a player named Jaden pointed out that a section of this wall by the mushroom extended out past the wall, and the bottom here has no hit detection. So if you could somehow go through this section of the invisible wall, you could land inside to set up a lap skip. And a player named Snoop figured out how to do that in a TAS, wall clipping off of this mushroom. From there, she then had to get to the end of the lap. You essentially have to go around the rest of the course while in the wall but still touching the road. Doing this is beyond precise. You have an incredibly tight space to work with. There's a point midway through where you have to turn more than 90 degrees to the left, and a player named Charlie figured out that to turn that far, you have to go extremely slowly and do a standstill mini turbo while in the air. This tedious movement continued for a while, but Snoop eventually got to the end of the lap. She then backed across the finish line, used a mushroom, and fell off the track, then respawned and drove to the end for a 19-second lap. This incredibly precise portion of the shortcut was developed by Jello Puff. You have to go from this box right in front of the finish line to this box back here, without touching this box between, or the lap won't count. It requires a perfect angle, but it can be done. This obviously can only be used for lap runs, since the setup takes far too long, and the best known TAS is a 16-second lap, published by EJ but with contributions from a plethora of players. But here's the crazy part. Technically nothing here is humanly impossible. There's no rapid fire hop abuse, and that wall clip at the start can be done. Even the movement inside the wall, as insanely precise as it is, technically none of those moves are strictly humanly impossible. So, will it ever be done? Conventional speedrunning logic says that anything theoretically possible will be done eventually, but it's hard to say if that applies here. Most in the Mario Kart Wii community don't see it as a humanly possible trick, even though none of the moves themselves are technically impossible. Right now, it just seems a little bit out of reach. The next shortcut, on the other hand, is absolutely out of reach. This is Dry Ruins. Let's start by looking at the checkpoint map. As with most of these shortcuts, the goal is simple. You go from the box in front of the finish line, out around the finish line and out of bounds, then respawn, turn to hit the last key checkpoint, and drive forward to finish the lap. The key to doing that is getting around the finish line. But here's the problem. Around the course is a massive invisible wall, highlighted here in blue. You can't get around the finish line checkpoint without getting past this wall, and it just goes up and up. So that was the big challenge. Figure out a way to get past the invisible wall. Blaze took it upon himself to solve it. There wasn't a way to go through the wall, but Blaze had another idea. He was gonna try to go over it. Enter the super grind. A super grind is a form of rapid fire hop abuse. You do the normal hop inputs on every other frame, but add in alternating between neutral and a direction on the control stick. This causes your horizontal speed to build up as well as changing your bike's rotational angle, so when you eject off the ramp, you get sent high in the air. By then doing a wall clip off of the rock, you go even higher, and can eventually make it up over the invisible wall and out of bounds. The rapid fire hop abuse makes this impossible to do humanly, but on January 16th, Blaze managed to get a 27-second lap in a TAS. That made it 2 ultra shortcuts discovered in January 2020. Just 1 month into the year, and 2 more tracks were already broken. The discoveries did slow down for a few months after this, as February and March came and went without any new ultra shortcuts. But in April, the 3rd ultra shortcut of 2020 was revealed. And this one had been in development for a long time. This is Bowser Castle 3. To start, we have to go back to July 2019, when Justin came up with a rough idea for an ultra shortcut that would barely save any time. At the end of the lap, you could hop up on the wall and wall clip to cut this corner of the track. Issue was, you'd be skipping the second to last key checkpoint. Your tracker would be at 5, then wouldn't update to 6, and since region 7 isn't loaded, the lap wouldn't count. But luckily, Justin had a way around that, skipping the first key checkpoint too. This might seem counterintuitive, but think about how the checkpoint system works. By skipping region 1, the game thinks you're still in region 0, meaning the last region is loaded too. So, skipping region 6 is inconsequential since the only other region loaded is region 7, and the counter updates once you get there, allowing for a successful lap. This same idea of skipping the first checkpoint to allow for a later skip was already used on Maple Treeway, so it wasn't a new concept. Justin's idea for skipping the first checkpoint involved wall clipping off the finish line pole, but that ultimately wouldn't end up working. The angle you would need to approach the pole wasn't viable for a wall clip, so that idea was ruled out. The next day, Benny theorized another method. It was actually possible to wall clip off of certain blocks. You can very precisely fall off the side of these blocks, then do a wall clip off of them to get launched far forward. And as Snoop figured out, this method was viable, but only if you use the spear, the fastest bike in the game. Even with the second clip later, the lap was still slower than the non-shortcut record, since the spear's poor drift cost too much time. The non-shortcut task to beat was 36.656. If someone could get a time under that, then this would officially be a new ultra shortcut. Esteloy62 and Curio would later prove that the first skip was possible with the Flame Runner, the bike typically best for getting fast times. That opened the door to maybe turning it into an official ultra shortcut, but when Akari and Monster lowered the non-shortcut task down by half a second in October, that put a bit of a damper on things. But a few months later, a group of taskers came back. They felt that if they could just find a bit of time to save, they could make this ultra shortcut a reality. So they got to work. The time to beat was 35.936.